A definition of integrated pest management is that it combines crop production efficiency with minimising negative effects on the environment.
The farmers have been using integrated pest management without maybe knowing it's called that for many years. So in fact they've been using things like variety resistance and diversity in different ways. So these are the main areas that they've been using already. Current techniques that are of value for them to use will be used a diversity of different varieties. Now they can use these singly, but also they can use them sometimes in mixtures if the market allows. So for example in winter barley or winter wheat for distilling, where the market allows it, they can use a mixture of varieties which will make a more resilient, robust crop as well. The other thing that they should really be doing is using fungicide programs which don't rely on just a single mode of action, but multiple modes of action in an appropriate program where they're looking at thresholds and forecasting and weather and all these tools to optimize the way that they use their crop protectants in conjunction with the varieties they've chosen and the known risk as well.
There are several pieces of legislation that relate to integrated pest management. So the Sustainable Use Directive is one piece of legislation where member states are urged to promote its uptake amongst growers. But then other pieces of legislation relate as well. So for example, the plant protection product regulations define the stewardship measures that can be used. Well, the farmer has to stick within legislative limits about the rates of pesticides that can be used, the situations where they can be used. There are regulations around impacts on water and environment. Some of the regulations around the uptake of the, if you like, the softer measures are more open to interpretation, and there it's probably where business efficiency will drive their uptake of alternative measures of managing pests. Future trends relating to uptake of integrated pest management are likely to retain an importance around managing the environment and reducing negative effects there. So that's not going to diminish. The public is still very interested in how their food is produced and the safety of that food. So those trends will increase. And trends that just increase production efficiency are going to increase as well, because it's difficult times for barley producers. So methods that can improve profitability are only going to become more important as we go on. Brexit's another area where there's uncertainty around how that would impact on integrated pest management. And it's likely there's already rhetoric that some of the environmental schemes may disappear, but I think they will be replaced by others. So while we might see some schemes go, other schemes, for example ones that improve soil management and structure, may be introduced. So I think there will still be payment around areas that improve the general environment and reduce, the potential negative impact of farming.
The main methods of integrated pest management I would advise is starting with the crop rotation and using rotation to break disease cycles and use that to maximise the yields of crops, but also to use, for example, good techniques of trash burial. So when farmers plough in a field, to make sure that the skimmers are set right and that all the trash is buried, to get rid of all the weeds and trash that's on the top and break the green bridge. But also look at varietal resistance on any of the different crops really, using disease criteria, scores, so choose the most resistant varieties so that we can use that to cut down on the chemicals required to be used throughout the growing season. But also, as part of walking the crops, use thresholds, for example the numbers of aphids per head, or the numbers of pollen beetles on a stem of oilseed rape, and don't just jump in straight away with an insecticide as soon as the first insect is found, but to monitor those levels and only use as and when required. The benefits a farmer might see from using integrated pest management is hopefully maximising the potential of any crop For example, if growing winter wheat after a break crop should reduce the levels or potential impact of take-all or any other stem-based diseases. So again, maximising the yield of the crop without any cost implications at all.
Currently, in terms of integrated pest management, we use variety choice as our primary thing. Secondly would be seed dressings, choice of fertiliser product in the spring to try and reduce the number of passes, and also stacking up the chemicals in a pass in order to reduce the number of passes with the sprayer. We avoid using insecticides where possible, primarily using seed dressings. So that's targeting the seed with an insecticide dressing to prevent any need to spray in the autumn for pests. And we will then use cultural methods if we can in the spring. We try very hard to avoid doing that because we're trying to increase our wild partridge population in particular, and insects are clearly beneficial for them. We use these integrated pest management methods primarily for economic reasons. But there is also a timeliness factor in there. It reduces the number of passes we have to do. It reduces the critical times for those passes so that if ground conditions don't allow in the autumn, we don't need to follow up with a BYDV spray, for instance, in the autumn. Being fairly short of staff, trying to get everything done in the spring in a timeliness fashion is challenging. So wherever we can, multiplying up contents in the sprayer to minimise the number of passes. Minimise the number of passes with fertiliser all achieves less total passes, more economic benefit. In my opinion, these methods are working. We are seeing a reduction in the need to apply pesticides overall. That's an economic benefit there. But we're also seeing a building number of wild partridge, which means that we're getting, particularly insecticides, we're getting that right in terms of not applying it when we don't need to. There are certainly constraints to applying integrated pest management. If we take my first choice, which was variety, the variety that you want to grow may not be a specific variety that an end user, a maltster or a perler would wish to use. And that may mean that you can't necessarily stack that as your first integrated pest management choice. That's the nature of the beast. We need to work with the supply chain. They have particular requirements, and we need to be. They need to understand our requirements, and therefore we need to get some common ground to work together. Because there is scope for potential economic benefit in all ways, but it's a question of working together.
A good first step for farmers to engage with integrated pest management is to look at the Scottish Government's online pest management plan, which we've worked on together with the voluntary initiative. So that provides background on what IPM is, the measures that farmers are already undertaking, and gives ideas of what they could pick up and do more of in the future. And they should be able to tailor that to their own situation, so it's well worth a look.